Hello. So we are here with Jenni, and she is a bikini competitor. So we're really excited to talk to her today. We are recording this so that we can play it back and you can listen on your own time. But first off, I want to say it's been incredible to watch your journey, from the start until now and going into your second season. So I'm going to pass it over to you and let you just kind of introduce yourself and kind of like what got you started on this journey.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Sarah. And same for you. Like, I love watching your progress, and like from when I met you to now has been amazing as well. So I can't wait to see you compete one of these
I know.
seasons. So my name is Jenni. I am from Wisconsin. I went through a whole body and mental transformation last year in 2024. It was really just, I was in a bad space, right? Like, I wasn't feeling good about myself. I've never been super body confident. So it was this whole thing has been a complete change for me mentally more than anything. But so I started focusing on my nutrition and weight training and hired a coach and just kind of went from there and had this crazy idea to compete. And then when I competed, I was like, what now? All right, I like this. I'm going to do it again. And so, yeah, just kind of my little bubble that I've been in for the last year and a half. So,
Hey, it's exciting though. And it is more so the mental changes that come from it than the physical. Like, yes, we see the outside change, and that's been really exciting to watch too. But it's more so, the mental change that comes with that. So that kind of leads me into my first question for you is, what was your starting point physically and mentally before you began? And how has that kind of evolved to now?
So physically, I was just overweight. I was tired. I felt like garbage every day. And that, with my mindset, my mentality, I was just like, avoid the mirror. I didn't want to even go out in public anymore. I didn't want people to see me. I was so afraid. Like, I just felt horrible. I was depressed because of that. But nutrition, if you really get into nutrition, like, it really messes with you mentally, good or bad. And I found myself like, just so yucky. And that was kind of what changed my whole mindset. Like, all right, I need to do something. And not to mention myself, I was seeing other people like getting sick, and just, I started going down those rabbit holes. And so that just kind of like fueled me and made me want to just get better physically and mentally. I didn't want to be that way anymore. And my husband, it affected him too, him seeing me, my mental state, just depressed. And yeah.
Right.
So
Was there any point in particular that was kind of like the pivotal moment, if you will, that got you started? Like, did you see yourself in a certain way, or something happened to the point where you're like, I got to do something?
yeah. So you know how it is, you go on vacation and like you're feeling good because you're on vacation. You're like, oh, I look great. And then you see those photos and you're like, oh my goodness, like, what? I saw the photos of myself. We were on just a weekend vacation, and I I can laugh now, but I was sitting in my camping chair and I saw the photo and I was like, oh my goodness, that no way is that me. Oh my gosh. And that was it. Like, there was many things that changed me that day, but like, seeing myself that way, I was like, all right, changes are happening.
Yeah, and I feel like that's usually what does happen, because even at the very start of my journey, it was kind of something similar. Like, I was out with friends and having fun, whatever. And then I saw a picture that I took from, one of the nights I was hanging out with these people. And I saw myself in the mirror and I was like, that's not me. Like, I didn't recognize myself. Right. So it was kind of like, oh, I need to do something. Like, this is not working out.
Right.
So it kind of leads me into my next question is like, what are some mindset shifts that were crucial to your success and getting you to where you are now?
Ooh, good question. It's so hard to answer. It was really just getting sick of my own excuses and lying to myself about like all these things. It you get, I think in anything you get sick of that, right? Like you get tired of the excuses, you get tired of the feelings, the tired ofs. I'll just call them the tired ofs. And so I was like, why am I doing this to myself? I need to change something. And so like just changing little things, like when I looked in the mirror, I wasn't going to talk down on myself. Like, oh, like, no, I'm going to change this. I'm going to change my way of thinking. I'm going to stop calling myself ugly or fat. Actually, fat was where I started. I'm not going to call myself fat anymore. I'm not doing that to myself anymore. I'm not going to. The one thing that really helped me, I read something, and it was to the extent of pretend that's your best friend in the mirror that you're looking at. Would you call her fat? Would you lie to her? Would you break your promises to her, or him, whoever? And I'm like, gosh, that just set off like a thing in my brain. I was like, you know what? I wouldn't say those things to my best friend. I wouldn't do those things. So that kind of snowballed for me mentally. And I was like, I am my best friend, right? I have to live with myself every day. So that's just where
Right.
I started too. That mindset shift of not talking down to myself anymore, not saying those negative things, not thinking those negative things. So
Right. And that makes it a big difference is like how we view ourselves, but it's also like the mentality around it and how we talk to ourselves. Like
mhm.
we wouldn't say a lot of those things to someone else that we say to ourselves. We're our own worst critics at the end of the day. Like
Yeah.
even, no matter how far you get in your journey, there's still going to be moments, but you're going to usually catch yourself more often than not and be like, oh, wait, pump the brakes.
Yeah. And it's so true. And you do, like, sometimes you do get caught up in those feelings, right? Especially as a competitive bodybuilder, like everybody, and I'm sorry, but I don't believe there's not one person out there that does this that hasn't had a negative thought about themselves in the mirror, in their head, while they're eating, tracking food. And it's a matter of catching that and stopping it and like reverting, just,
Right.
yeah.
I totally agree. And Holly, you can hop in at any time, by the way, if you have any questions.
No, I'm just enjoying the discussion because, Jenny is hitting a lot of nails on their head, like just straight driving every time. It is really hard when we're going through any journey, right? Not just weight loss, not just bodybuilding, but when we feel a certain way and we feel it deeply, right? We feel it deeply. And sometimes we're in a space where we're ready to make a move. And sometimes we might not be ready, right?
Mhm.
Jenny, do you feel like the things that hit deeply, it took time, right? It took time to be ready
Oh, yeah.
to kind of, shake out that Cracker Jack box
Mhm.
and pick out what aspect you felt ready to address.
Mhm. It
Yeah.
is very true. And looking back, like the whole start of my journey, okay, I reached out to a coach. Like I knew in November of 2024 that I was ready to make some sort of change. I had this wild idea that maybe I could compete, and that was kind of the fuel for me to keep going and that goal, right? But I reached out to him in November, and I started paying him right away. He gave me some tools right away, but I didn't implement them 110% until like January, right? The typical, I'm going to start January 1st. But, like I had some tools, I was ready to roll, but my mindset, that's when I was shifting my mindset. Like I knew what I wanted, but I had to fully jump in and really commit to myself. And at that time, I was building my own home gym and getting that stuff prepared. So I was doing a little bit, but not 100%. And then, yeah, it clicked for me and I just rolled with it.
I love how, and I just want to highlight that you said tools, right? We're given tools, whether by through an internet search or a podcast that inspires us or a book that we've read, or we get a coach, right? They're tools. And you said, it was up to me. I was in the headspace to dip my toe in by finding a coach.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a change. And that was a step. That was a step because that's a hard step because the hardest step is showing up.
Yep.
Right. So you made that decision to show up and establish what would grow to be accountability.
Yep.
And sometimes after we get the hardest step, like we made the phone call, we sent the email, we got somebody.
Yep.
We may need to simmer there for a while, and that's okay. But you didn't stop. You just took the tools as you were ready. And I would imagine you couldn't handle all 20 tools at once.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you just kind of selected one screwdriver or one pair of scissors or a set of gloves at a time to try them on to see how they fit mentally and emotionally and physically. And then we grow, right? It happens in layers. And so I think it's great that you touch upon tools. And I think that, it's so refreshing to hear somebody say, I needed to be in a space where I was ready to, one, be accountable to myself, not anybody else, right? Because we can pay people all day long. But if we're not ready to be accountable to ourselves, change isn't going to come.
Yep.
And you said, I wasn't quite ready. It took me some time. But you were doing other steps that were progress in the background, right? You made a gym. So you were taking steps. You just weren't quite ready here. But I commend you because it really is refreshing to hear somebody talk about tools and accountability and saying, I felt this way. And like you said, there's a lot of us that feel a certain way about a lot of things, but I don't think we always necessarily hear about it, especially not in this realm.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We look on Instagram and we look on Facebook and we look on all these platforms and we see everybody's highlight reels. This was my before and after.
Yeah.
And it was amazing. And odds are that when they're talking about that amazing, they probably just got done competing. Like you're riding that adrenaline high, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost, for those of us that have had children, it's kind of like we completely forgot about all the hours beforehand because now, we've produced this child and we're like, it was amazing, whatever. Now, and if I had asked you 6 hours ago how you felt about it,
Right.
we would have not shot the same highlight reel. That we would have been like, I'm over this. I don't know why I thought this was a good idea. I don't want to do it anymore, even though it's too late to do anything else about it. So I really is refreshing to say, let's talk about the messy middle. I
Yeah.
don't think it gets talked about enough, that messy middle.
Yeah. And it's so true. Like, that's a great example, right? Having a child, like, so
A
true.
highlight reel.
Yes. And you know what? Any journey in life, whether you're like starting a new career or if you're trying to, get healthy, it is super messy in between. There is no perfection. And that was actually something that I really had to focus on too. I want to be perfect. I want to be perfect at my workouts and perfect at my nutrition. And scratch that word perfect. Doesn't exist. Doesn't exist. And that was a hard one for me to like switch off and like think of different ways around that. But the metal is messy. Missy. Metal is missy. I'm making up words.
We
The
got
metal is
it.
missy.
Oh my God.
No, I love that. And even
Yeah.
like every prep is different, which I'm sure you're experiencing different things now, right? But every prep, that middle part is messy. Like it doesn't matter how experienced you are, there are going to be different challenges that you're going to face within that, which leads me to my next question is how did your family, friends, or work even respond to your transformation as you were going through this process?
It has been interesting and has been a mental challenge for me in a sense, right? So right now I'm in prep. I'm 10 weeks out. And so of course my body's changing drastically and the fat's coming off and I'm looking thinner. And that has been a big thing for like my customers through work and stuff. They're like, oh my gosh, you're getting so skinny. Or even family members are like, oh, you can afford that cookie. You can do this, you can do that. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. So here's how it works. I go up and down, and right now I'm going down because I got to get ready and get lean for stage. It's just body fat. When this is over, I'll put body fat back on, So the response has been kind of all over the place. Some people get it, some people don't. I just try to educate everybody on, what I'm doing and why I'm getting thinner right now. And the thing that bothers me is, gosh, I wish I could be skinny like you. I wish, this, or have that cookie. You can afford to eat those calories because you're thin. And like, just some people don't understand it. So I let things go. But it has been an interesting challenge, yet fun educating.
Yeah, it's always weird and kind of funny to see the different responses you're going to get, right? Because some people get it and others have no idea, right? It's not their same goals. They don't have the same goals in mind. So to them, they would never do it, even though they like the aspect of like, hey, you're doing all this stuff and you're looking leaner, right? But I could never do that. And I'm sure you probably have heard people say that, like, I could never do what you do. And it's so funny to see because I'm sure, every one of us gets that in some way or another. I had a lot of that with my own family to the point where I deleted them because I was just like, you have nothing nice to say. Bye.
Yeah.
I started deleting people. I was like, bye. Like, I just don't need that. But that's also because my mentality back then was a lot less than what it is now, right? Like I have a stronger mentality now. So I couldn't handle things like that back then. But, I digress.
Yeah, it's crazy. I've lost a lot of people. Like you said, you've had to just kind of push some people out. And that is true. Like you lose some, you gain some. You just try to educate them on, where you can. And then, I hear that a lot. Like, oh, I want to be like that, but I don't want to have muscles like you, or I don't want to, I'm like, muscles don't happen overnight.
No. And I would say that's probably the biggest misconception is like, oh, I just built all this muscle overnight. No, that's taking a long time.
I could use some glutes. So overnight would be wonderful.
Let me just get overnight some glutes real quick.
Right.
Awesome. Well, my next question would be, how has this journey impacted you in other areas of your life besides fitness?
Oh, to say accountability, that word, accountability, discipline, in every aspect of my life. When I think that I can't do something or change something, I'm like, what am I thinking? I just went through a whole thing, like a whole year and a half of doing these things. And I'm going to say I can't do something. Like it has changed a lot of different things for me in that aspect. And discipline has been my biggest one because discipline was something I never thought of, but never really had, I guess, now looking back. So just it leaks into every area, especially like my work and my focus on other things. And just, it's definitely helped me a lot in different areas other than fitness and health.
Right. Yeah. Even if you're not competing, I find a lot of clients, even if they're just making lifestyle changes, it goes and flows over into the other parts of their life. Like the discipline being the main thing, like feeling like you can do something more than just the fitness related stuff, right? Like if you have a different goal, you've built up that discipline and that mentality really to be like, oh, I'm going to stick this and see it through type of thing, over play the long game, if you will. You're not there for just that quick fix. So I love that. I love that.
Yeah. Oh, the quick fix. That's a good one you could touch on. Like Yeah. We could probably talk for hours about different things, but
Well, I'm sure we can. I'm sure we can. Awesome. I did want to ask you too, like, what was it like for you stepping on stage for the first time? Can you describe kind of how you were feeling in that moment?
oh my gosh. So kind of recapping that whole day for me, I was so calm and so cool and collected. It was the weirdest thing for me. It was almost like I was just in this like really cool space where nothing was bothering me. I was watching other competitors and they were like, oh my gosh, everybody's nervous, right? And I'm just like, gosh, I'm not feeling anything right now. Until they were like, okay, transformation class, you're up. And I was like, what? I was like a deer in the headlights. As soon as they said you're going on stage, I freaked out. I mentally I got up there and I'm like, I can't do this. I can't do this. I can't do this. And the person that was, bringing us out on stage, he was so, so kind. And he was like, you can do this. You just went through an entire transformation of your body and stuff. And you're going to stand here and tell me that you can't walk out on stage with your family and friends waiting for you to come out. I was like, yeah, you're right. I have to do this. And I was shaking so bad. Like, I couldn't even smile. It felt like my whole face was just like freaking out. But, I looked fine on stage. But once I did that first round, your first time, you're like, oh, that wasn't so bad. And then you just kind of just go with it. You're there. Right. You make the best of it. But I was scared to death. I didn't realize it until it was time to step on stage.
Did you feel like part of it didn't feel fully real to you until that moment where you're like, oh, shoot, it's my turn? Like, oh, my God.
Yeah, because, you spend all this time like prepping and just doing these things for that moment. And yeah, it's like it's not real. And then when it's over with, is a whole new experience. So, yeah. I mean, the nerves are definitely there and you get through it.
Yeah, you do. You do. And you've practiced hundreds of times. You know what I mean? It's just when you're up there, it's like, oh, like this is actually real. It's happening. Yeah. And even though I practiced, however many times, it's like, okay, like I'm in front of a bunch of people and the lights themselves, like I remember stepping on stage the first time and I was like, all these lights and stuff. I couldn't even look at the judges. I was just looking out in the crowd and that was making me more nervous. I was like, oh my God, there's so many people. I'm not a public speaker by any means. I sweat profusely. And I'm like, oh my God, it's terrible.
Oh my gosh, I know. Like, and that was the thing. I was like, okay, focus on something. Like just focus on something when you're out there so that you're not thinking of, what's going on around you or who's looking at who or yeah. It's a crazy moment and it's so worth it. And here we go back for more, right?
Yeah, you're back in it for more.
Oh.
Awesome. Well, I did want to kind of touch on suits a little bit. I know we've chatted a lot about your journey so far. How did you feel when you first got your competition suit? Was that kind of like a pivotal moment for you in terms of like you're actually going to be stepping on stage soon and being like, oh shoot.
Oh my gosh. Seeing my suit in person for the first time was like, I worked so hard for this. This is my trophy, right? I don't need to win anything. This is what I worked hard for, to put this suit on and just go out there and do it. And so I cried. I was like, oh my gosh, this is for real. It solidified all my hard work and that I was to that point where I was ready to go, do what I set out to do. So it was just a feeling like I can explain it, but I can't explain it.
Right. It's one of those things that's hard to explain until you've experienced it yourself and kind of going through that. But I love the video you made of like you unboxing your suit and stuff, because it kind of captures like that, just those raw emotions of kind of been like, I've worked so hard for this. I finally have this. And then the only next step is just to keep plugging away and step on stage. Like you've done all the hard work up until that point. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's like, it's exciting to always see that because you have worked hard for that. It's like you tend to go all this time and be like, okay, now I finally have my suit.
Yep.
Now I know you've also ordered a couple of posing suits from us, right? So I wanted to ask you, have the posing suits help make a difference in how you practice your posing up until you were able to get your competition suit? Did it help with your confidence and things like that?
Oh yeah. I can't imagine trying to do this without the posing suit because it's got that cut for you already, so you can see what you're building, you can see your muscle tone. It really helps, I'm sure, with my coach for check-ins too, because that's mimicking your suit, right, for stage. So that aspect, and then also like just having fun with the color. Pick a suit color that you're thinking of doing on stage and just roll with it. And they're so budget friendly already to get a posing suit that if you can afford to do a couple different colors to see what works for you too, that's helpful in itself.
Yay. Well, awesome. Yeah, I love it's very different than getting an off the rack suit. You know what I mean? Like you could go to Walmart, you can go to Target, and yes, those suits are great. We're not discrediting that, but bodybuilding is a different game. And it helps you to build that confidence before you step on stage. Because I think a lot of times without that, we get our competition suit and we're like, oh, shoot, I was not ready for this.
Yeah, because if your posing suit and your stage suit have a different cut. And so, you're not going to be able to find that at Walmart. You may be able to buy like a certain style on Amazon or something, but you really want to see, and mentally you want to see it, because if you're not comfortable standing up in front of a group of people in a tiny bikini, this helps you get used to that. And that was a struggle for me too, because I was like, oh my goodness, like, ooh, I'm showing my glutes, I'm showing things that I would never have done in the past, so it does help build that confidence towards the stage as well. So
yay. Were there any moments that you wanted to give up, and how did you overcome them?
there has been moments I wanted to give up. I think that's the nature of humans, is things get really hard and you're just like, I don't want to do this. It's focusing on your why. And I never understood that. And people would say that all the time, like, what is your why? That needs to be strong in those moments. You really need to focus on why you're doing something, right? When it gets hard. So that has been the biggest thing for me. When things get super tough, I'm like, why am I doing this? I'm second guessing everything. But the fact is I think of how I feel and how I want to feel and how I want to stay feeling in the future. And that keeps me going.
Okay.
And I've worked so hard. Why would I give up?
Right. It's like, why would I give up now? I put all this time and energy into this, right? Yeah. And you do feel good in certain moments, right? And of course, we have those other moments where it's like we're second guessing everything, we're nitpicking ourselves. And I think that a lot of that just comes from how we view ourselves, or how we did view ourselves, trying to creep back in, right? Because a lot of clients that we've talked to, or and even ourselves, like I can attest for myself, right, is I sometimes still see myself after I gave birth or at my heaviest, right? And a lot of those thoughts will creep back in, but I'm like, I've worked so hard and I don't look like that anymore. And sometimes you have to remind yourself of how far you've come in that process, whether that's physically and mentally.
Oh yeah, for sure. And when it comes to, like, for me with my training, if I'm tired and I'm just like, I don't want to do this, like, I will still do it. I may not give it 110% that day. You got to give yourself that grace. And, sometimes your body is just telling you that you need to rest a little bit more. I've had a couple of those days now over the last couple of weeks where I was like, I'm not giving up. I'm still going to go do what I have to do. I may not be able to lift, 100 today, but maybe I'll just bump it down a little bit, but still get in my exercise. And then with nutrition, it's really about finding like creative, fun things to do with it, because nutrition can get pretty boring. It can get repetitive. And there's so many ways to make things fun and enjoyable. And so that's, with nutrition, I try to make it fun and enjoyable and stick to all my little numbers. But there's plenty of ways to do that, and just giving yourself that grace, because nothing is perfect on a day-to-day basis anyway.
No, I love that.
I want to dive a little deeper into where you just were. And by all means, if you want to pass over it, you are not obligated to answer. But I'm going to ask you specifically several factors. During times when you weren't feeling well, and I would imagine there was potentially times where maybe, anything from a small cold to possibly something major. What adjustments did you make to allow yourself to navigate?
So with workouts and food, or one and
All the above.
oh,
Mentally,
um,
emotionally, physically, let's just dig it
yeah,
all up. Like, let's dig it all up.
sure. I mean, so over the past month now, there's been 2 instances where I was like, my body, actually last week was a great example. I just started as a personal trainer for a gym. And so my daily routine is I get up every morning. I will, sometimes I'll have a pre-workout snack. I'll do my weight training. And then I go to my full-time job. And then I go to my training job at night. And I'm doing 3 group workout sessions every night, Monday through Thursday. And so last week was a new adjustment for me. And my body was exhausted, because I have to show these workouts. I have to perform some of these. And I do them with my clients because I'm there. So I was exhausted, and my body was telling me, whoa, like back it up. And so I just took a little extra time off. I didn't do my cardio for the week. I was just listening to my body, backing off a little bit. And then my food, I could tell that I was depleted. My body was like, same thing. Besides physically, it was telling me I needed more. I added a little more carbs into my day. On one day, I just kind of upped my food a little bit for a day. And then the next day I felt wonderful. So I know like some coaches will do, refeeds or an extra carb meal, or I kind of take it upon myself. Like I know my body well enough now that I can do those things. And then I'll see how it affects me the following week for my check-ins. If it doesn't affect me, I knew that I was okay.
Yeah.
I kind of do my own thing with my nutrition and my training, but I just listen to my body. And I think that's really important too. I am usually pretty vocal with my coach, like, hey, I'm having a day. I'm mentally going to lose it, or, I'm going to binge, or I can't do it as good today. And he'll step back and he'll be like, here's what you can do. So I kind of have an idea myself what I can do, but you got to give grace. That's all I can say.
I can imagine. I can imagine how good it feels to not only feel confident in being able to have that talk with yourself and advocate for yourself internally about what you feel like you need most, but also being linked to a coach who is hearing you, right? Because that communication, like you said, it's very essential, right? So being in a space where you have a coach that says, tell me what's going on with you. I really want to know the good, the bad, the ugly. And you saying, I feel like we have a big enough rapport where I feel comfortable telling you the good, the bad, and ugly, because you're going to hear me and we're going to work together in a way that works for me.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's so important. Yeah. It's so important in a coach, like, that you do find someone that you can do that with. And I understand sometimes it may get a little like overwhelming, because I will reach out to him and be like, well, listen, my cycle's coming and I really want to eat and binge. And he's a man, he gets it as a coach, but he may not understand. He's like, plug my ears. But I am a person where I just put it all out on the table. Like, listen, this is how I'm feeling. This is what I want to do. How can I navigate this?
Right.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it, I will attest to this too, is just, I think it's important that a client can vocalize, right? A lot of times there are some clients that will get a new coach for the first time. They've never had a coach or never been in this space before. And they sometimes tend to just do whatever you say, never ask questions, and just kind of roll with the punches, right? Until it's like, they've been dealing with stuff for a while, and then they tell you, and it's like, girl, you could have told me back when it started, kind of thing. So I think if anyone's listening to this, of course, talk to your coach, be open and honest. If the coach is receptive to that, it's kind of on them, but they should be willing to help you out where you need to. And if they're not, then you might not have the best coach for you that fits your needs, right? But with all that being said, I love that you're having open communication with your coach, because that is super important.
Okay.
A lot of people don't realize that they can do that when it comes to things.
Yeah. And, you see those questions and comments on like Facebook groups a lot about, hey, I have a question about this. It's like, and you see those comments, people are like, reach out to your coach. That's what your coach is for.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm just like, hey, coach, here's my issue. I feel comfortable enough. So if people aren't comfortable talking with their coach about it, maybe it's not the coach for them, or maybe they just need to get used to that, used to talking about those things. I know sometimes things are uncomfortable, and that's okay. But communication with your coach is key, especially when you're having a bad day. Reach out to them and just let them know, because it might just be that one person you need to talk you off the ledge of going through a drive-through because you don't have time to cook dinner when you get home, or, just something silly like that. It may help you. So reach out to your coach.
Absolutely. Because I think, again, it's one of those tools, right? A coach is a tool.
Yes.
And your coach can only help / support you in most cases, right? Because there's what we would deem, how you're describing your relationship with your coach is how I would say usual and customary. Usually and customary, that is how that relationship should work. Does it happen like that for everybody? Probably not. However, that is the baseline for usual and customary for a great relationship with a client and a coach. However, your coach, no matter how much you're paying them a month, or how many athletes they have, or how many awards those athletes have won, if you are not communicating with your coach all those details, right? If you're not telling them, I dived into a pint of ice cream on Friday night, I just couldn't help myself, and there was no F's given, I was having a day. If you're not having those conversations, then I'm going to say, when your body isn't changing the way you want, and the results are not happening the way you want, the first thing as a coach I'm going to ask you is, let's go back and look at your logs. Let's go back and look at your workouts. Let's go back and look at, and if I open those logs and there's nothing there, or you're not being 100% honest, not with me, but yourself. That is a self accountability. I've given you a tool, and it's up to yourself to log everything. It is up to yourself how hard you're going to work during a workout. It is up to yourself to accurately log what you really did in that workout. Because if you're really lifting 5 pounds, but you're typing in 25 pounds, I can only help you in the capacity that you're allowing me to help you with the information I've been given. And it really upsets me, like you said, when we see these posts and people are like, nothing's working, blah, 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 blah. And you're like, well, okay, have you talked to your coach? 9 times out of 10, no. But my friend Susan and my friend Linda said that blah, 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 blah. Well, you're not Linda and you're not Susan, right? You're you. We're all unique. And it's a wonderful thing that I can say each and every one of you is you and you're unique. But if you are not logging that extra cup of sauce, those 3 handfuls of chips that you grabbed and didn't log, you're not accurately describing your water, you are having alcohol, and this isn't me knocking alcohol, right? Because I like some whiskey or some Patron just as much as anybody else. However, if it's coming a point in time where it's impacting your ability to move forward, you have to hold yourself accountable, and you have to really be honest with yourself and then your coach. Because I would imagine, and there's that level of discomfort, right? In the beginning, I would imagine in the beginning when you were just trying to get on board, right? You were building the home gym, you had bought the coach, you
Mhm.
had some tools. Maybe you were using all the coach tools, maybe you weren't. Um, there's that habit change, that mindset change, that this is really hard phases, which happens a lot, even to the most of us that are seasoned.
Mhm.
You know, those times when you hit a wall with being honest with yourself, how did you work around that? Oh, yeah. You're like, ooh, 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 ooh.
It's so true. I think of all those times that I grabbed a handful, and I do it all. I don't do it all the time. I do it occasionally.
We're human. We're human, right? We're human.
Yeah.
It doesn't make you bad. It doesn't make you wrong. It makes us human. But there's the things that we're not talking about. We're human. Nobody's perfect.
Mhm. Oh man, I can think about, and then this was just like 2 weeks ago. Peanut butter.
Oh, that's always a popular topic, peanut butter. I feel like we could have a whole discussion
And
on peanut butter.
I know I am so honest about these things. I will message my coach and I will call myself out. I'm like, hey, just so you know, I was dipping in the peanut butter.
Yeah.
So if my check-in on Monday isn't great, probably because I wasn't holding myself accountable for a few of those.
Yeah.
And to navigate that, I just had to, I'm like, honestly, my husband is a great accountability partner.
Awesome.
He is like, listen, you have goals. That's not going to get you to your goal. You
Yeah.
need to stop doing that. And he goes, I know you're going to get mad at me when I tell you this, but I'm just being honest.
Yeah.
And it's like, you're right. You're absolutely right. I'm going to tell you this time you're right. And, it was just a matter of, okay, out of sight, out of mind, put the peanut butter away. It's not on.
Yeah.
And then meal prepping my food is a huge thing for me. And
Yes.
so I just had to reel it in. And I decided to just I always do my breakfast and lunch the same every day because it's easy for me.
Yeah.
And then I decided to just do an entire dinner, the same thing every night. So here's what I have to play with during the day. Here's like my numbers for my snacks. If peanut butter fits in, it fits in. If not, it doesn't. And
Yeah.
so accountability,
All right.
holding myself accountable.
It probably, you can tell me I'm wrong, but it probably is one of the hardest things. Like going to the gym, once you get in there, it's not hard.
Yeah.
You're there, right? You're there. You're going to do the thing, especially if you have a plan walking in.
Yep.
Getting the right equipment you need, deciding what shoes you want, what suit you want. On the level of 1 to 10 hard, not so hard. Those are easy decisions.
Mm-hmm.
But that accountability piece, and everybody's different. Everybody's different where they get hung up on a wall of accountability. Some people it's nutrition. Sometimes it's cardio. I'll be the first to admit that I don't love it. And we're looking at my coach. She knows. I feel like a kid that's been allowed to go to the playground, who's been told they can't play on the playground, that they have to get on this, hamster wheel while everyone gets to play with my favorite toys.
Yeah.
But we have honest discussions about that where she's just like, okay, I know it's not your favorite. However, at some point, there are points in your plan where it's going to have to happen. And there's that level of accountability saying, I was cursing you out the entire time I was on the dead mill, but I did it. And I just want you to know I'm not your friend right now, but I'll see you tomorrow. I'll see you tomorrow.
Right. I'll be back.
But it is the accountability component to yourself because, it's hard to be honest with external people when we're not being honest with ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Super hard.
For sure. My next question is, would you have any tips for someone who might be nervous about competing or posing or any part of that process? What would you say to them?
I think with stepping on stage, if you're not prepared with posing, I think that makes you extra nervous, right? So if from the beginning, if you know that you want to compete, start with posing right away. You know, nutrition and workouts come with the territory, but posing, so many people don't understand it. And you need that muscle memory when you get on stage, because that is going to save you. Your body will know if you are practiced enough in posing and you've got it down. You don't have to be perfect by any means. There's that word again. It's just knowing your foundational steps. Even if, you know, you don't have the flow and all that, I'm still working on that. And I started posing.
Transitions are hard, yeah.
Yeah, I started posing the day I knew I was going to compete, like January 1st. Like I started watching videos and started to figure it out. And, you know, and I still am not like the most graceful, beautiful swan up on stage, but I have my foundations down. And so when I got on stage and I had to pose, I knew what they were asking for. I knew how to put my feet. I knew where to place my body for the judges. And you still, there's a million things going through your head, right? Like keeping your glutes up, your chest up, your arms in places, and listening to them to tell you when to move, and ignoring the girls next to you and not getting caught up in any of that. So that will help ease the pressure and all of that when you do step on stage, knowing your poses and just rocking it out, letting your muscle memory take over sometimes. So,
yeah, I find that a lot. Like if you've practiced enough, that muscle memory will take over. Like you could have a million things going through your head. You could be a deer in the headlights, like, but that muscle memory is going to take over. And you can usually see those on stage who have practiced plenty of times and those who didn't practice enough, right? You can clearly see the difference for a lot of people and the reason why they placed how they did. Usually they could have a great physique by any means, but it's their confidence they exude on stage, but also showing what the judges are looking for sure.
So now I'm going to unlock a secret of the universe. You said, I don't know how I was that calm. That is why. That is why.
yeah.
When you know, I personally grew up performing on various stages. And I can tell you that nothing really emotionally or mentally prepares you to perform on stage when you're in minimal fabric. And I've been in a lot of like skin tight, like what illusion of whatever. However, when you can feel the breeze in certain areas that you're not like particularly used to, it can be unnerving. Now imagine someone who on average doesn't feel comfortable in a bathing suit.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm talking like whole piece bikini, and you could be like, oh, I wear bikinis, they're small. None of that prepares you, because when we usually go out in bikini, we're out in a group.
Yeah.
We're with a friend. And
Yeah.
we're on a beach or a pool or a vacation or a resort where everybody else is just as uncomfortable as we are. And we all just kind of take comfort in that. But you aren't going out walking a platform, a catwalk by yourself without your friends in the comfort of everybody else being dressed like you.
Mm-hmm.
Minus the people behind you backstage, and they're all feeling the same thing. So when you said, I don't know how I was that calm, muscle memory, practicing things how you would perform them. Because if you practice half-ass, you're going to perform half-ass. If you're doing mini motions when you're practicing at home, you're going to awkwardly try to force a motion bigger that your muscle memory, because when your brain goes, "Ugh, I can't do this, there's so many people here, I'm on Mars," your brain just goes blank. And you're going to be like, oh, wait, bigger motions. And your body's going to fight you, because it's going to be like, no, that is not what we've been doing the last 6 months, 6 weeks, or 6 hours for those of us that didn't think it was important. And those things, you know, you can't force that adjustment in 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
It's going the awkwardness and the disconnect in that transition is going to show. So when you said, when I started wanting to do this, and you said, I started posing right away, kudos to you, because that is why you were so calm up until the point that you took a breath and said, oh my goodness, this is it.
Mhm.
And that's a natural feeling. That is a valid, natural, usual, and customary feeling for most people. But that work you put in kept you calm while you were backstage getting ready, while everyone else was running around like a chicken with their head cut off, and you were just kind of like, I got horse blinders on. I came here to do a job. I'm focusing on all the muscle memory I physically built mentally.
Yeah.
And I'm basically going to stare at this floor until they tell me it's time to go out.
I feel like that's what I did too. I was just like, whew, okay.
Uh-huh. I'm going to stare at this floor because it helps me put on horse blinders
Yep.
so I can focus on the job I prepared my muscles to do
Mhm.
when I hit that stage. So
Yep.
that was your superpower.
Yeah, I
You
never.
you built that. You built that. You can't buy that. You
Yeah,
built that.
awesome. Never thought about it that way. That's so cool. Yeah, I
You
mean, I
cracked
just.
the code on a superpower.
You didn't know coming into this today you had a superpower, but now you do.
Woohoo!
You may have many more, but that one is solid. Like,
Oh, goodness. Well, I have time for one more question, but of course, if we have any other ones, Holly, you can feel free to add in. But I have at least one more. What does success look like to you now, on and off stage?
yeah,
Oh, tough
I know
question.
it's deep.
it's a deep one.
Yeah. Following through. That is my success. Just following through. And like we touched, it leaks into all areas of your life in some way or another. And that has been one thing that I have done with so many things since starting this whole journey is I have followed through. I'm like, if I can do that with this, I can do that with that. And
Okay.
so following
Love
through,
that.
that has been my success.
No, I love that.
That's
And that's like your tagline, follow through.
true.
Follow through, that's a good one.
Yeah.
No, I love that. And I love that your journey has evolved so dramatically, but like in a great way. You know what I mean? Like you went from, the end of what was it, 2023 going into 2024 and like, I'm going to do this. I had my mind set on this. I'm going to follow through, right? And no matter how many hurdles you face, no matter how many ups and downs, you're like, it was consistent on trying to follow through, like adjust, readjust, keep going, no matter what happens. So I love that. And I can't wait to see you step on stage again here this year. You're 10 weeks out, you said?
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
10 weeks. Yes.
Yeah.
10
Yay.
weeks.
Well, how can we find you if anyone's listening to
Yeah.
this? How can they follow your journey?
I am on all socials for the most part. So Instagram, you can find me at Dreaded Gains, and that's with a Z, not an S. I'm on TikTok. I'm not as that on Facebook, but yeah, Instagram and TikTok for sure. YouTube, I started a YouTube as well for like the nutrition part of it, just some motivational stuff. So
Okay.
yeah.
Awesome. Well, if anyone's watching this to the end, definitely follow Jenni. She's definitely motivational and inspirational, and we can't wait to see you continue.
You. Thank you
Jenny,
so much.
You're
Jenny,
welcome.
if you feel comfortable, please tag us as you're posting parts about your journey. If you want to, take a moment to happy dance, celebrate, update us, just tag us, let us know so we can help celebrate and support you. We're definitely going to be cheering you on. I love hearing that you have a solid relationship with your coach. You can just tell when you talk about your coach, like you light up, and that's how it should be. And so, whoever your coach is, tell them I'm high fiving that person as well, for just setting a great example on what that relationship should look like.
Thank you so much. Yay.
Yay. So I'm